I'm speaking to Africans right now, no one else, to my people. I will not waste any time today though. We will dive straight into some of the things currently happening in DR Congo, specifically in the city of Goma. But I believe we can all agree that in 2025, certain things should just not be politics. Again, with the excuses and blame games, no one wants to take real accountability. As I've said before, certain things just should not be political, especially not in 2025. Happy month of February, diaspora, and happy new year. Continuous lives have been caught in the crossfire as Rwandan-backed rebels have seized the cities of Goma, leaving countless Congolese citizens fighting desperately for their survival. The conflict driven by the M23 militia has torn through communities, creating a humanitarian nightmare with no end in sight. In some parts of Africa, it seems as if we're making phenomenal progress, and it's almost unimaginable coming from this continent. And other parts of Africa, we're disturbingly tearing each other down and essentially exploiting each other for Western governments filled with thugs. When will we learn? Or have we already learned and we're still choosing to stand in our own 6 feet bloody pit? All this coming up on today's show with no bias, no lies, real Vim, real Casa. Hey viewers, if you're looking for some amazing West African cuisines in New Jersey, visit Legit African Touch at 52 Ferry Street, South River, New Jersey. Mama's Secret, only continental dishes, preferably Ghanaian or Nigerian dishes, all in Legit African Touch. Get a feel of the African touch now. We're back. I am back in full action. Wow, have we started this year off pretty interesting. Honestly speaking, off the record, towards the end of last year, I needed the hiatus, and it was well spent. I needed to come back with more fire for you, a new fire for the new year. The final weeks of 2024 last year was truly a roller coaster, full of highs and lows, a fourth quarter jam-packed with emotions within politics, economic tragedies, even as we speak. More economic tragedies, but through it all, we are deeply grateful for God's unwavering love, grace, and protection that has carried us to this point. But I believe we can all agree that in 2025, certain things should just not be politics. Certain things should just not be political. I'm speaking to Africans right now, no one else, to my people. We should just have common human decency, which is clearly, as we can see, not common. Everything is politics. Everything. At the expense of who? At the expense of what? Resources, power. This is geopolitics. I will not waste any time today, though. We will dive straight into some of the things currently happening in DR Congo, specifically in the city of Goma. So in the Democratic Republic of Congo, the country has turned into a war zone, a continuous war zone, with all the killings, rapes, and war crimes committed from M23 rebels since 2022. The situation has escalated even more since then. I want you to take into account that 10 years ago, M23 in 2012 first seized Goma, but the Congolese army supported by a UN force pushed the rebels back into the eastern hills on the border with Rwanda in 2013. This is not their first rodeo. There have been attacks with explosive weapons in populated areas, such as the North Kivu province, that has killed and injured thousands of civilians, damaged infrastructure, and exacerbated an already dire humanitarian crisis. Armed groups opposing the M23 have also committed these crimes. More than 237,000 people were displaced in January of this year alone, according to a recent report by the Office of the UN High Commissioner for Refugees. The Rwandan army has already deployed troops to the eastern region of Congo to provide direct military support to the M23 in order to help them expand control over Rutshuru and neighboring territories. United Nations Security Council was considering putting additional M23 leaders as well as Rwandan officials who are assisting the abusive armed group to the Council's existing sanctions list. President Tshisekedi of the Democratic Republic of Congo and Rwanda's President Kagame have finally agreed to attend a summit organized by Eastern and Southern African states to address the ongoing crisis. Up until now, both leaders have avoided previous peace talks because they are children, children in power, and using the country's citizens as toy Legos, basically. This is essentially our reality. It sounds silly, but really sit and think about it. Despite the fact that the two nations have been at odds for decades, primarily over control of the region's untapped mineral wealth, Kagame has consistently denied supporting the rebels, who argue they are fighting to protect the Tutsi ethnic group from persecution by pro-Hutu militias. Militias linked to the horrific 1994 genocide in Rwanda. Again, with the excuses and blame games, no one wants to take real accountability. The DRC, government and the UN accuse Rwanda under President Kagame of supporting M23 with soldiers and weapons to control the mineral-rich eastern DRC, which Rwanda denies the charge and accuses the DRC of harboring members of the Democratic Forces of the Liberation of Rwanda, an anti-Kagame rebel group that has involved in the 1994 Rwandan genocide. But see now, the full scope of the West's complicity in the human suffering in Congo has been partly obscured since the International Rescue Committee stopped updating its Congo mortality report in 2008. That year, excess civilian deaths reached 5.4 million, making the situation in Congo the world's deadliest crisis since the Second World War. An article published by The Guardian indicates in October of 2023, the UN's International Organization for Migration said 6.9 million Congolese people have been displaced by violence, up from 5.6 million in 2022. But let's be real here. Western governments are absolutely complicit in the ongoing suffering in Congo. It's clear to me that they've been funding these militia groups to keep the conflict alive, all while exploiting our resources for their own benefit. The big question that nobody seems to answer is, where are those groups getting their weapons from? Who's funding them? Who's been keeping this war going for so long? You cannot convince me that Western powers are not involved, because the evidence speaks for itself. The international community can't just sit back and pretend they're innocent in all of this. It's too convenient, and frankly, it's too devastating for the people on the ground to ignore. I think my biggest question, right, is why has it taken so long for these leaders to take action? To sit down, put their differences and personal motives aside, and have a real conversation about the future of their countries. It's frustrating to me, especially when we see government officials in Africa time and time again putting their own selfish interest above the lives of the very people they're supposed to serve. Kagame and Tshisekedi should have been at the table years ago. Although Rwanda's President Kagame, a Tutsi, is widely credited with stopping the genocide in 1994, no easy feat, right? There's still much more work to be done on the ground in helping restore these parts of Africa. We cannot continue to live like this. Members of different religious denominations gathered in Kinshasa came together to pray for an end to the war on Monday, February 3rd. The M23 militia has made no pledge to give up control of the strategically significant city. Its fighters were pushing on for the city of Bukavu, a second major provincial city, before it declared a ceasefire. It's good that they're finally stepping more to the plate now, Kagame and Tshisekedi, but let's be clear, this delay has cost too many lives. The people don't have the luxury of waiting for politicians to get it together. In the time it's taken for these leaders to get their act together, countless of families have been devastated, communities destroyed, and lives lost. If this was brought to the table sooner, I trust that something would have been able to be resolved. As I've said before, certain things just should not be political, especially not in 2025. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it was great talking with you. Unfortunately, that is all the time we have for today. Be blessed Be vigilant and stay tuned for the next episode on The Real Casa Show. Stay tuned. On the next episode of The Real Casa Show, we're going to be talking about Burkina Faso, Mali, and the Sahel states, their impact on Africa right now, the rising leaders stepping up to the plate and putting Africa first, putting the people first. All this coming up on the next episode of The Real Casa Show. What up, viewers of The Real Casa Show? Make sure to follow The Real Casa Show on X, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok as well. Real Casa Show, Mondays at 9 p.m. always.